Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. Welcome to Hocus Pocus month. We have got a bunch of projects, bunch of techniques starting up. I know that many of you are opening up your advent calendars and you're wondering what all of those bits and pieces are for. Well, I'm going to show you one of the projects that I have in mind for the following days. It does not mean to open up all the days at once, right, and kill all that anticipation. But days number 1, 4, 8, 10, 13, and 24 are intended for a specific project that I want to work on and get started with you now. So you can do it in a variety of ways. I'm going to explain it to you, but you will find I'm giving you some walk-in time to this project over the course of the month, heading right up to the 24th. You will be unwrapping that series of bags again, 1, 4, 8, 10, 13, and 24, and they look like this, right? They look like these materials here. All these cones that I got for this purpose, these colors here, and a couple more, right? But these are them right here. This is the highlights of. So I'm going to be using these materials. They are quite different from one to the next, right? You got stuff like this. This is what I always refer to as toe yarn because it feels so good when someone rubs it between your toes. I'm talking about me and my daughter, not anything too weird. And it's super tickly. It's nice Christmas yarn too, but this one is kind of a maroon and gray and it has a pretty twist to it. We've got stuff like that. We've got stuff like this boucle in there, right? Really unusual nubby fabric. We've got thinner boucles like this, right? It's a more highly spun, but still high mohair content on that one. This one is kind of a combo of both, right? It can look like this if you unravel a little bit, but it's like a two-part story here. And oh, this one here, right? It's got a little bit of glitter in it. So there's lots of fun fibers, and hope that wasn't too much of a spoiler alert. I just want to, oh, look at this one. This is another, I just love these because they're going to hook really fast and very thick nubby yarns, right? You could also ply it to make it two different pieces, but it's very nice as one piece as well. Really pretty colors, fall colors. And I have an idea for a very easy pattern that I'd like to walk through with you. I'm going to show you variations on a pattern, but I want to do something with autumn leaves, and I want to do it together, and I want to do sort of a tutorial that goes start to finish with this video so that you look at what I'm doing and you see that your hands alone, without tools, without patterns, can do great designs. So let's look at the possibilities for putting together a pattern that will involve 1, 4, 8, 10, 13, and 24. Come with me into the other room. So I am sitting down and I'm going to show you the limited supplies I'm using to try to put something together from scratch to start using your advent calendar stuff for. Now, it might be that you want to wait until a little bit later in the month when you open more stuff. You don't have to just use those numbers of bags that I named. You can use whatever you want. And of course, you can use your own material, cut up some t-shirt material, whatever you have, sari ribbon, wool strips, anything, chiffon, anything. Plastic bags, right? Whatever you like to use, you can use them for hit or miss projects like this one is going to be. So I was out at the all-you-can-eat sushi the other day, and I ended up sketching some different kinds of leaves that I like. I was working on a composition that's quite close to the project that we did in Mini Punch called Split Bloom Garden. It's a very easy 1950s design I was working on. The idea of splitting up a composition this way is not new, right? I did not invent this. This is a very sort of 1950s, 1960s look. So I was experimenting with different leaves and different breakdowns and some different ideas. So let's start by saying at this moment, it's still early September. My idea is to create a composition with leaves, and it might be too early to go out into your yard to get leaves, right? Because wouldn't it be great to just be able to trace leaves? I drew for me here in this part of the country like a maple, an oak, I forget what this one is. Not a red maple. What could that be? Not a birch. What is wrong with me? I need to see the leaves, right? It's been almost a year. So you can work on realistic leaves like that. You can look at clip art. You can look at other projects. I'm going to work on drawing just a simple leaf shape. I'm going to show you this kind of thing that I do often. Let me show you this on a piece of paper here so you can see what I do when I get going, right? And if you want to do something like this with me, we're just getting the design thought out at this moment. Then pause the video and work on it again and again and again. I'm just going to literally create a stem. I'm going to flip this over when I'm done. And I like to do for rug hooking a simplified leaf that's like this, right? I'm not sure that that actually is a leaf, but super simple with 2 points, 2 points, 2 points. You can get a bit fancier. You can do different shapes with the same kind of idea. So this is my pad of brilliant ideas. I better do something brilliant while I'm working live, right? I also sometimes like to put the stem all the way up and then do something quite similar, right? But you could do it a bit more fancy. And of course you can fold them in half like paper snowflakes, and that one just has more points. You can fold them in half like paper snowflakes so they are perfectly symmetrical. It's good to put in a few veins on the leaf, and you can hook that too and make that look really, really, really good. All we need for the moment is a series of outlines. So you can do them in any kind of shape that you like. I'm going to show you the one that's more like a birch. Birch will be more like this. I usually draw the stem first, and then it kind of does, I'm sorry, oak, not birch. And then you're just kind of doodling it like this, right? It's not perfection. Maybe every leaf is different, just like a snowflakes, I don't know. But adding veins can help with the realism aspect of it, right? And then there's other things you can do that are not realistic at all. I'm going to show you in just a second. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take out, I'm going to think about my leaves. I'm going to put my leaves over here. Think about what kind of leaves I might want to use. And I'm going to take out a piece of backing fabric, very, very small. So this is linen. This is a little leftover piece of linen. And I have just used my regular sewing machine, not even a serger, to zigzag around the edges so I don't unravel. And now I'm thinking about my designs. It might be that I want to cut them out and transfer them on. The first thing I want to do if I'm working on a design, whatever your backing fabric is I'm going to want to square it out. So let's talk about how to do that really quickly. I want to have enough room to put it on a frame or on a hoop. So this is a small scrappy piece that I'm just demonstrating with. I usually leave myself 4 inches, but you can see I'm not doing that with this project. This is a for fun project. So, and a scrappy scrap. I'm just going to pick up the weave, get rid of that. The ink was dying, and I'm going to go straight across with my eye. I'm going to make sure I go straight across and stay on the line, because if my lines aren't straight, when I hook it or punch it, my guide is going to be off. That's not good. Now I am coming really close to the edges because I'm probably not actually going to work this piece. I'm just using it as an example of design, design composition ideas. I'm going to throw at you real fast. But I do really want you to get used to squaring stuff out, right? Because it's going to make it a lot easier to hook. You get lost with your hooking when you are not squared out. You really do. It's not good. I'm telling you what, this little string, right? This drives me nuts. OCD, big time. So if I wanted to just drop some leaves in here, that would be super easy, super fun. What I might want to do, remember this design, right? This sort of 1950s idea of splitting your canvas this way. Try to do that with me if it seems like a good idea. If you want to do it on a piece of paper first, do it on a piece of paper, right? If you're worried about, you can always flip it over too, right? And just draw your lines again. They're never going to come through on the original side, right? They shouldn't. If they do, it's very, very faint. So what I'm going to do is just draw a few haphazard lines, like a couple like this, what I can fit. Right, I'm going to do it with this orientation looking at me, and then I'll switch it so that you can see it better. I might draw one more line here, and I'm just going to do, in the style of this, some shapes of leaves. I'll show you what I'm up to in just a second. All right, so that's one. I'm going to flip it for you in a minute. Just fooling around as I go, right? I'm sketching now too. I'm creating some leaves that are going to be, some of them are going to be a little bit cut off, and they're not all going to be symmetrical. That didn't look so good. That's a pretty lopsided one, but let's see. It's amazing how, even if you don't do a perfect job, maybe I'm going to make some overlap too. That might help. Even if you don't do an amazing job, you might end up with a composition that you really like. And give it more time than I'm giving it, right? So I've got 3 leaves here. And so far, this is what I've done. Very, very simple, right? I just drew leaves. Again, If you have leaves down at your house, if there are some fake leaves at Joann's or Michael's, a craft store, you could get some leaves to put into a harvest sort of bouquet, right? Artificial flowers. You could do that. You could use it that way. I've got these two overlapping. You don't have to do that. You could put more in the corners if you're a corner person and you like to see the corners done up a little bit. But what I would do if I hooked this composition with my cool fabric, some of my cool fabrics that I've got, is what I might do is put some of these neat bits and bobs into the backgrounds. I might work them into the backgrounds a little bit, but I'll probably do like split color. For example, on this leaf, I might do this half of it dark orange, this half of it lighter orange or yellow, and then this line functions as a stem, but it actually also breaks up the composition. And that's kind of fun, isn't it? It could even drop a line in here, right? So all kinds of fun. Maybe that looks too much like a sunset now. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I didn't go far enough, right? Maybe I want to add a few more lines just to add some more hit or miss colors, right? Maybe I want to think about stuff like that. Maybe I want to add lines. You see how this guy is kind of hanging out on the side? Maybe he just wants to connect. And here's another color, right? Because what you've got coming out of the Advent calendar box is a lot of pieces, a lot of small pieces. Most of them are 5 yards, some of them are 10 yards, but what a lot of fun to break this down further, right? So then I've got different shapes, right? Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, that's not a very lucky number, so let's make it 12. But you see how easy that is to put something like that together? Right, just going through it, working together, silly stuff like that. Now, this is a really easy kind of composition that you can start thinking about or working on, right? With those bits and pieces. You could hook part of it and do another part of it later. Here's another idea of something fun that you could do. I'm going to go grab a little prop. Hang on. I was fooling around the other day. I happened to be cleaning my studio. I wasn't really cleaning the studio, but I was moving stuff around. And I found this drawing I did from a while ago. It was just something silly. I might have been playing with the kids when I did it. It's not a work of art. And I'm not going to want to use it like this, but I did like when I lifted something up, it is stuck to my fiber tape now, and I don't dare take it off because it's tracing paper. But I do like the idea of putting the faces on the leaves. That could be something else that's quite whimsical and funny. So I'm going to start this idea the same way. This is an option, right? If you prefer something like this that's a bit sillier for fall, that might make a nice table runner kind of a thing, I'm going to start the same way by following lines. So I square up the composition, right? And again, I wouldn't normally, this is just for the video that I'm using scraps. So I'm not using like $35 a yard linen when I'm not sure I'm going to have time to do this. Believe me, I'm going to try, but I'm just as happy putting this in the hoops anyway. I sell those square hoops and I like those a lot. So it doesn't have to be a massive piece, and if it is a massive piece, I probably won't finish it. So I'm going to start the same way here, right? And I want to drop in some leaves again. I want to drop in some leaf patterns again. So this is what I'm going to do. Grab my scissors, and you know, these are not like the definitive best leaves I've ever drawn, but they're going to be good for the composition, because when you think about it, as you start hooking something, even if it's your pattern, if it's a commercial pattern, whatever, does it ever really look the way that you thought it would? I mean, mine never do. That's one of my lifelong problems, is I start working on something and for some reason, sometimes you hit that period where you're like, it's awful, I hate it, I need to set it on fire. And then, you know, you stick with it out of boredom or because your show's not over yet. And then you go, oh, it's really good. I don't know how that happened. It's magic, but I'll take it. You know, I can't repeat it, but I'll take it. So that can happen, right? That can happen. I could either work with, it depends on what kind of person I am and what I like. I could either work with my the negative of the stencil or the stencil itself. So I'm just going to cut out these little guys that I did, some different shapes. I'm not going to keep the stem in them because I want to have some stem flexibility. Is that even a thing? Cut some of these guys out. I might draw one more kind, and I think I'm going to put some faces on them. You know, if I really sat down and thought about it, and I might, when there's a little more time, I just want to get some videos going to you because, you know, I'm going to be traveling. This is the beginning of September. I'm going to be traveling in Wisconsin, between September 7 and 11 with some of my buddies from our group out there, checking out the Wisconsin Fiber Festival. So be looking for some great live content there. Man, I cannot wait to visit with some of those sheep farms and vendors who are out there. I've been kind of stalking them online already. And man, they have some beautiful, beautiful fabrics coming our way for the Wisconsin Fiber Festival. And it will be my first time in Wisconsin, so I'm really excited about everything. And I'm going to share that with you, as much of it as I can, as we do a series of live videos for those 4 days that I'm away. I just want to get you started on this because I work very, very fast. I always fly by the seat of my pants, partially because of time, partially because of my temperament. I know that nothing is as it seems, right? Whole milk masquerades as cream. Nothing is as it seems. That's a Gilbert and Sullivan reference. But it isn't. And no matter how hard I work on the perfect design, I might not get the perfect design. So I don't spend too much time when I do these kinds of hit or miss seat of the pants projects. I don't spend too much time agonizing because I know it's not going to be what I thought it was anyway, right? It's just like a metaphor for life. So let me get down some of these main shapes that I've got. I've now got this guy too, right? Probably one of these is poison ivy and I don't even know it. Let me draw some veins in here. And this is all stuff you can slow down the video on if you want to think about this, be a little bit more thoughtful about your composition. I just want to show you technique-wise. Edward Sands Frost, right? We talk about rug hooking royalty. Pearl McGowan, right? She used to push the postcard across the canvas and draw the lines that do some of her geometric patterns as she went. It's very, very fun to work like this. I'm going to use my black marker again. It's very fun to work spontaneously. It's very fun to work with stencils. Edward Sands Frost is the 1860s Civil War tin peddler, right? Who figured out that selling stencils on his route, on his peddling route, to women to help them with their designing for their rugs, it turned into a very profitable business for him. Not everybody has innate design sense. For most people, I think it just needs to be awoken. But starting with stencils is a great way to get your composition started. Oh, I just drew a line through that. So that one's not going to have a face, right? Some of them I do want to have faces. And you don't have to do the faces. This is just for fun. I'm giving you ideas so that when you start hooking this, we're going to hook these designs together a little bit later in the month. I'll probably hook all of these just a little bit, just to show you some of the different ideas coming to fruition. I'm going to leave this one the way that it is for the moment because I might want to do a face on there. And I don't want to put them too close together. But I do, you know what, I'm going to put some upside down for variety. Just tracing my stencils. And again, if you wanted to put in some acorns or some Van Gogh type Starry Night action or some blowing wind, right? You could certainly do that. I think I'll bring this one into, I did that on purpose that time, don't worry. Let's see, let's get a few more of these guys. Maybe. I'm debating right now also whether I would like to have them hanging off of the canvas or not. And I'm going to go for not for me. And I think the reason is because I see this project for me, I see myself hooking faces onto these leaves for this particular project. I see myself hooking faces onto the leaves, like the silly picture I just showed you, right? And then using all of the crazy materials in the background as hit or miss, right? They're nice and soft and lush. They make a very high, very tactile, interesting variety of, I have to concentrate sometimes, of textures and heights. So I'm going to pause you for a minute as I finish this up. I'm going to say, though, it is not a bad idea to reverse your leaves. In other words, flip them upside down. You get the reverse of it, unless you drew them symmetrically, and it makes no difference. If you drew them like a snowflake and you folded them in half and that's how you got your shape, then they'll be symmetrical, but mine are not. You saw how I did them. Did you notice how I did this leaf last? And I haven't used it. So obviously this leaf is not, I'm not in love. I'm not having a love affair with this leaf. I'm going to force myself to use it. but it's not as interesting of a shape for me as some of the other leaves are. Kind of wondering, what if I were to do a leaf like this that was a bit more, let's see if I could do something spontaneous that had these kinds of guys on it. That might be more fun. You see what I'm doing here? I'm kind of scalloping out just for fun. A bit of a, needlepoint crewel Jacobean type design. See what I did there? I just traced around the edge of the leaf and just made it a bit different. So let's do this guy going this way. Maybe these two cross. Why not, right? So I was fighting against the crossing of the leaves, and why was I? Just maybe being silly. And maybe this guy will fit in the last spot, but because it's a bigger spot, I could even exaggerate him a little bit. So I'm going to draw him a little bit bigger than the stencil. And happy little leaf, right? Bob Rossing it a little bit. So I've used these stencils to create a really simple composition, and I'm just going to draw some silly faces on some of them. And I can really think about it later. I always do faces the same way, so maybe I do them a little bit different. Maybe I keep them fairly simple. Maybe I want rosy cheeks on them. I usually want rosy cheeks on them. Maybe this guy is a bit more of a jack-o'-lantern face or something, right? I can decide later whether I like all of the ideas that I have. Maybe he has square eyes. Da-da-da. Something different. Let's see, this guy seems to be facing this way. Looks like he would have a very skinny face. Maybe it would just be more of a profile, more of an avant-garde type profile. Something like this. Big, artsy kind of mid-century type face. Something like that. And, oh, this one I forgot to put a stem on. Some of these I do want to be mixed in with regular leaves. I don't want them all to have faces, because then it's kind of, the joke gets old. So maybe I'll do this one like a regular leaf, or color changing. This one maybe I'll put a face on. Let's do big lips. We don't want to be grotesque, but let's do big lips, maybe just a little nose, and maybe cartoony eyes like that. So different, maybe the leaves, this is going to sound crazy. I might make this one regular too. Maybe the leaves speak to you, right? And if they speak to you too loud, maybe send us a note and say, yeah, I'm having this very specific problem. The leaves are speaking to me. We can maybe get you some help. But a little bit of speaking would not be a bad thing. So you can see now I have a composition that I quite like, right? Using the idea of leaf patterns again. And again, I am going to bang this is a video about using the supplies in your advent calendar. If you don't have the advent calendar, I know a lot of people don't have it. I didn't do infinite and it sold out, but you're using a lot of the stuff that's in the advent calendar, cutting it as you go and hooking these different materials into the background or into the leaves. I think they look great in the background as a hit or miss fiber, right? Just make the background wild and wacky with color. I think if I'm using these colors, I might be very inclined to do very simple leaves, right? Like I'm thinking of a few scenarios here, possibly like all shades of red, tomato red, crimson red, scarlet, cherry red, all different shades, fire red of red, right? For continuity, that would be cool. Or I could do all of the leaves, for example, in black, right? With different faces and the lines in different colors, very cartoony, right? You could go in, or you could do them in traditional colors. If you're using all of your, the bags that I named at the beginning that have all of these kinds of, they are kind of autumn colors that I'm giving you. If you are going to use an autumn colored background and you're going to make your leaves a mixture of autumn colors, you are a little bit at risk of the composition getting too busy and getting too difficult to read. So think about it. If that's your plan, oh no, I've got to have my autumn color leaves and I want to use all those materials, then maybe think about outlining your leaves in black or aubergine or a nice dark color, or even like a teal color like this, or something more like a Grecian green color, right? Something really bold. But outlining your leaves could be very helpful, and outlining, the features of the face could be very helpful too. So those are a couple of ideas for things that you could do. So we have got a couple ideas right now. The idea is that while I'm traveling, I'm going to be thinking about this project. Are you going to be thinking about this project too? And what if you are a complete beginner and you got the advent calendar and you're like, oh, I've got all this stuff. I don't have backing fabric. Tell me again about that nightmare about monk's cloth, the right monk's cloth, the wrong monk's cloth, all of that. If you're a beginner and you're thinking, what can I do that is not going to give me agita, right, at this point? I want to do something simple. I want to jump in. I want to do easy projects like this with you using the Advent calendar as the backbone. What can I do that I can just do right now without buying more supplies? Well, I have an idea for that too. So I took out my frame. Let me actually leave it right here for a second. I grabbed a sweater. I have a lot of sweaters that don't fit me anymore because I put on a remarkable amount of weight, right? I hope to get it off, but it's still there. So I had this cute vest, right? It's like a Fair Isle vest. It has been through the washer, but it's not felted, right? I washed it hot, but it's not felted. It's still quite pliable. I think that this is going to be something. I never know from sweater to sweater. I do not know from sweater to sweater. You have to try. But sometimes I can do one of these where I put, hang on, we want to do that. And yep, and then just bring it back to me. Mm-hmm. And tell me when you're ready.
Okay, it's already running, so.
Oh, then stop it. I mean, I don't want it. So I've got the vest, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can hook with it. Many things I can hook with as a backing fabric. So I'm stretching, and you could do this in a hoop too. I highly recommend the square hoops. That's why those are the only hoops that I stock. They're the tightest. Get it on your frame or on a nice tight hoop, as tight as you can. Right? These are kind of easy to tell if it's tight enough or not because of the Fair Isle. So let me pull it out in the corners a little bit. You don't have to be too tender with it. It is, you know, it's a wool sweater. So my point is, my question in my head is, will I be able to hook anything into this material? Now, I'm not set up with it designed yet. I would want to think this through and maybe trace my material onto my sweater. Depending on the color of my sweater, I might want to get that chalk stuff, the tailoring chalk, right, that seamstresses use, where it's white, right, or yellow, sometimes blue, sometimes pink, and it's at quilt shops as well, tailoring chalk, right, or transfer chalk, and maybe trace around it. You could probably take a piece of sidewalk chalk, to be honest, and just trace around the shape if you wanted to be very, very careful and certain that it was going to work. So for example, I'm just going to try as we sit here, right? I have not tried this before. I just got the idea 5 minutes before I started shooting the video. Something a lot of people have, a sweater that's ready to go. So I'm just going to see if I can pull loops up with a sweater. This is not my best hook. Oh, guess what? I can pull loops up with this sweater. This sweater is a little bit tight. I have to admit, this is my worst hook. The reason I took it is because I'm putting it in my purse for the airplane because I'm afraid they're going to take it away from me and I don't want to lose a good one. So I would be using a better hook for sure. This is a very, very fine hook, and I only work with like coarse hooks. But it's not the sweater, it's the hook, and it is wanting to come through. But I could also make it much tighter on the frame, but certainly hooking even a thick fabric like this into an old sweater. And you saw that I separated the front and the back of the sweater, right? I didn't do that on camera. I had cut it before. This fiber is going to work great going through a sweater. You could also do a landscape, right? I didn't even think of that. If I had put it the other way, with the stripes being the ground, and I had a bunch of little trees that were made up of all the dots, all of the different fibers that are in your box. It's quite a lot of different ones. Here comes a different one right now. If I was making, for example, trees with them or bunches of grapes, that could be super, super fun. Yeah, these are going to hook no problem. I actually doubled that up so I didn't have a tail underneath. And I do need this to be, I'm going to give up on that one. I do need this to be a little bit tighter, my backing fabric. Oh, it's super lofty and lush. You see, this is a much thicker fiber. So let me do a couple more. Oh, I see. You see it's stuck. I took the wrong piece. Here, let me cut this just so I can do a little bit more. I was wondering why there was no give there. Fighting with a giant cardboard cone. Yeah, this is going to come up nice and lush. You know, it reminds me almost of candle wicking. All the little, looks like little knots coming to the surface. But you can see how this would make a super luscious backing. And solid sweater material, Fair Isle, whatever. Everybody has a sweater with holes in it, right? Or that doesn't quite fit anymore. or that had one too many Christmas parties and has a few stains on it. And this is really fun fiber to put through sweaters as well. Again, if you feel like the sweater is too loose, Lautrec, then just put it through the washing machine, right? You can wash it on hot. Don't dry it until you see the way it comes out. If it hasn't changed at all or gotten a little bit thicker, that's called fulling. It gets more full, it's fulling. Then put it in the dryer just a little bit and keep an eye on it, because you don't want it to felt into a big, thick piece of material, because then you can't put anything through it, right? And then it's hopeless. But to have something like this that my hook easily goes in and out of, right, particularly when I'm paying attention, you can pull through these big, thick fibers. So you could do something with the shapes of leaves here, right? You could trace them out here and fill them in here. I would say use kind of solid colors, possibly outlining if you're doing this. This kind of idea, using the stencils, using these fibers, would make a great autumn pillow also, right? There's so many things that you can do. So in the next few days while I'm traveling and you are opening your advent calendar bags, why not think about the things we just talked about? Because the idea for these bags was to do a hit or miss project that involved leaves. If you wait a little bit longer, it might be that you can pick leaves up from your yard and use those as stencils, which would make it even more special. But think about what you want to do. Think about if any of these ideas that I just threw at you appeal to you at all. I'm going to give you one last idea that's very old-timey, but it might strike you just the right way. It will be my last idea. Let me get my last piece of material out. This is burlap. And if you have a store near you, burlap is probably the easiest one to think about using, because there are different burlaps. There are different qualities of burlap. I'm still going to square it out. But if you get it at the craft store, you get kind of a decorator's burlap, not really from the garden store. And you feel it. It's going to be rough and coarse, but it does have a lot of give. Burlap is not good once you get it wet. I'm just squaring it out again, right? It's not good once you get it wet. But if it's just going up on the wall because it's a small piece, you can use burlap. If that's what you've got and that's what's handy and what's ready, go ahead and do it. I'm just thinking about a classic kind of Pearl McGowan hit or miss pattern. And I'm not measuring this out because it's me, but you could measure it. Let's say I was measuring it and it was something like, I found that these were my center lines. I'm going to do a checkerboard just like we've seen a million times from the 1930s right up to the present. Makes an eternally great design, timeless design, very historic, and it's done like this. Right? But you measure yours, make sure yours is a bit better, right? And then you would put your leaf designs wherever. And you could do different leaves or you could do the same leaves. And maybe I'm putting this one here too. And maybe I'm going to put for myself the same leaf in every other box. But in every other box, you do like this. And make sure that you alternate. If I'm doing vertical here, make sure I do horizontal here, right? This is how the old time pattern goes, just for variety. And make sure your lines are good and straight, or at least that you hook them good and straight. And then I could populate the rest of it with my leaves, different leaves, same leaves, whatever. This is a very traditional design. This is something that we've seen, but if this is where your taste is and where your comfort zone is, this is a great option for you. You can still use really cool fibers. These are weaving fibers, right? You could use really cool fibers to do a very traditional pattern, and it's not going to look like a very traditional pattern. It's going to look like a very exciting pattern. It's going to look like something new, right? And it's from you. That's the most important thing. It's coming from you. So make sure that it has your personality in it. Make sure you're using the supplies that are in your advent calendar to do something that feels right for you. Make sure that there's you in it. And give it some thought for a few days, because I'll be back to you probably on September 12th to show you what direction I went in and which of these projects I'm working on, and to bring you the next project for this month. There's going to be a lot coming at you fast. I will see you next time at Ribbon Candy Hooking.